Coming in at number 10, we have a cosmic new origin story for the infamous Killer Croc. One of Batman's more physically intimidating villains over the years, Killer Croc long assumed he was a human man named Waylon Jones with a disease that coincidentally disfigured him into looking like a human-crocodile hybrid. However, following an investigation into a serial killer believed to be Killer Croc's son, Batman reveals to the villain that in his hometown during the year he was born, seismic activity lining up with those caused by a meteor was registered, along with multiple DNA alterations in the area resulting in mammals with reptile genetics. Horrified at the realization that he might actually be the result of an alien species from outer space, Killer Croc just goes to show that the wild villains of Gotham can always get a little bit wilder. At number 9, we've got a major death in the Power Rangers comics, a franchise of superheroes that we don't often get to cover on this channel, but hey, I'm a 90s kid, so let's bend the rules a little bit. Taking place in a slightly different continuity from the TV show, the Power Rangers of the comic book universe have been attempting to ward off an imminent invasion from the evil and all-powerful Imperials. Unfortunately, just as the war seems poised to begin, the Rangers are dealt a terrible blow when their mentor Zordon is betrayed by one of his own species and murdered by having his prism shattered. Talk about a smashing way to start a new and dark story arc, Rangers. Coming in at number 8, we have the X-Men's terraforming of Mars. The last few years have been particularly noteworthy for mutant kind, as the X-Men now call the entire island nation of Krakoa home, and have even been able to essentially make almost all mutants immortal. Going even further this year, in a grand display of power at the Hellfire Gala, Magneto and several other mutants combined their powers to terraform the planet Mars into a new homeworld for every mutant known as Planet Araco. Taking only a few hours to accomplish, Magneto declared that this new planet is now the capital of the solar system and was an outstanding feat that displays just how powerful mutants are becoming in the wider Marvel universe.
At number 7 is Daredevil. This guy has had a ton of different costume changes over the years, starting with what has become the most unusual Daredevil look of them all, his original yellow and red costume from Daredevil number 1 in 1964. But since then, we've mostly seen him go full red, and although eventually he changes his look so much that he appears as an actual demon in the Hellspawn and Earth X storylines. He's appeared as Captain Universe, with his costume gaining an otherworldly effect with a spacey design and white pants, which is also a first. And if we're to count Dark Devil, we also saw him with pointy shoulder pads as if he were a Mortal Kombat character. Mutant X also gave us a really different look with a half black, half red, skin tight suit with more pronounced horns. The point is, Matt Murdock and the few others who may have taken on the mantle have gone through countless different costumes, and Daredevil continues to be one of the superheroes known for changing it up quite often. At number 6, we have none other than Iron Man. I mean, in his first appearance, he is literally a guy in a big suit of armor, which basically looks like it's more of a hindrance than anything. And Tony only changes the color to gold when he starts fighting with the Avengers. But there have been so many different iterations that I can't even name them all. Even between the 3 self-titled MCU movies, his armor changes a little bit, whether it be the color palette or a slight change in the shape of the armor. But aside from that, we have his Hulkbuster armor, which is an enormous bulky upgrade, then Iron Man Superior, which shows us a silver and blue design, which isn't even iron anymore by the way, it's made of an endosymbiotic substance, offering a whole different look and purpose. So whether he's changing his look to add weaponry like the War Machine suit, or to help breathe underwater like the Hydro or submarine suit, or whether he wanted to go full blue to blend in with his stealth suit, Tony Stark can't seem to make up his mind. And honestly, we can't get enough of it. At number 5, we have Harley Quinn, who is right now a superhero, so I'm involving her in this list. Originally brought on as a sidekick to the Joker in a 1992 episode of Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn has become an icon in pop culture, and pretty quickly too. In her first appearance, she had the classic red and black checkered jumpsuit and the jester headdress. But her costume makes a small change between the animated show and the comics, with the checker design shifting slightly as well as her mask making a small adjustment. And then pretty quickly she shifts more in the comics, with her hair starting to show partly in one earlier iteration, then entirely in her 2014 self-titled comic series. Of course, we can't forget about her look in the DCEU, with Margot Robbie's portrayal shifting the character's look into a whole new realm. This naturally influences the 2016 comic series as part of the DC Universe Rebirth, when her hair once again appears entirely free of the headdress, but instead of black and red, it's dip-dyed with the now iconic blue and pink, being otherwise blonde. Now, I know that these changes are all natural progressions of the character's costume, but Harley Quinn is also known for changing her look temporarily for circumstantial cases as well, like her hospital uniform, her roller derby outfit, her punk rocker look, and the Task Force X outfit. And who can forget the Gotham Arkham Knights uniform, just to name a few. At number 4, we have Hawkeye. This guy seems to always be wearing something different, and the only constant at this point seems to be his bow and arrow. When we were first introduced to Clint Barton in Tales of Suspense number 57 in 1964, he had a purple, blue, and yellow palette with a big fat H on his forehead. But soon after this appearance in 1972, he appears in Avengers number 98 with a blue tunic and a headband, looking more like Robin Hood than anything else. And do you remember when he took on the mantle of Golden Archer briefly and had a completely yellow outfit with a cap and feather? Well, that didn't last, obviously, and he was back to a purple hood and jumpsuit. In the 2000s, he shifts to a darker, more modern look, which I personally prefer, and in 2011 we see him don a dark blue uniform that covers his face entirely in the Ultimatum series. Then in Ultimate Hawkeye, he takes the mask off again and has the red and black look with the red goggles, which kind of goes back to corny again, personally. Old Man Hawkeye changes it up again and comes forward with something like an earthy tone with cloaks. A lot of cloak work in the later years of Hawkeye. Anyway, I had to leave some out because there are so many cases, but let me know what your favorite suits are. And at number 3 we have Wolverine. With a character who's pushing 200 years old, you'd expect him to change up his look a few times, but Logan has made so many aesthetic choices over the years that it's hard to keep count. Originally donning the classic yellow, blue, and black look, he doesn't stick with it for long. Soon we see his outfit go red and yellow in 1980, then full black later in the 80s. And then of course the now classic 2000s look where the jumpsuit is scrapped entirely, at least in the movies. He then takes on the white undershirt and jeans during this time with the dog tag, but then the animated series X-Men Evolution shows him with an orange and black jumpsuit and then a total reversion to his original look in 2004's Astonishing X-Men. He then takes on the black look again in X-Force and then back to the dog tag and white undershirt in X-Men Origins in 2009. It actually just seems like they cycled through his classic looks again starting in 2004 up until the present, when we're back to seeing Wolverine mostly appearing in his casual clothes in the movies and something like the original yellow and blue in the comics, but who knows? I'm sure he'll switch it up again before we know it. At number 2 we have Batman. Of course we do. His costumes have gone through so many different phases, it's almost impossible to keep track of them all. But strangely, his suit hasn't really changed that drastically since it first appeared in 1939. It's just all these different alternate outfits Bruce Wayne has taken on over the years for brief periods that have been so diverse and fun to see, and the reason why he sits at number 2 on the list. Some of my favorite looks he's taken on over the years have been the 1958 Zur-En-Arrh look, the 1960 magnetic zebra suit from Detective Comics number 275. Briefly, it's a weird one, go check it out. The Dark Knight Returns armored suit, John Paul Valley's Nightfall costume starting in 1993, the Batman Beyond look in 1999, and even the Stealth Insider suit after Final Crisis. Then the much darker Flashpoint suit that Thomas Wayne takes on, which adds some red to the equipment belt, which is a really cool change, and they just go on. I could just keep going with them. Batman just won't settle on one look, but it does make sense for a hero that relies pretty heavily on his gear, that his costume would require a change up pretty often to keep him competent on the battlefield. Okay, finally, at number 1, can you guess? Yes, you probably got it, it's the one and only Spider-Man. Do I need to list them? Spider-Man seems to have a suit for everything. And with Tony Stark on his side, he gets some really great upgrades with the Spider Armor, which is personally my favorite line of suits. But even in the MCU, Spider-Man's costumes seem to be a big part of any conversation, only coming after maybe the new casting choice and whether or not the fans are going to be happy. And even within any given movie, we will often see more than one iteration of the costume within a 2-hour span of watch time, whether it's the homemade suit or the symbiote costume or even some version of the spider armor. We're so used to seeing Spidey's costume change that It's become part of the experience of the character. And this interest in what this hero wears has been cultivated simply by all the different looks that Peter Parker has taken on over the years. The Future Foundation suit, anyone? That's gotta be one of my favorites. There are too many to list, so let's just maybe chat about it in the comments.
At number 10 is the Hulk vs. Cthulhu. The Incredible Hulk number 3 has delivered a colossal showdown that's got everyone buzzing. In the latest issue, we witnessed the unimaginable as the Hulk throws down with none other than the Eldritch Terror itself, Cthulhu. That's right, you heard me correctly. Hulk vs. Cthulhu. Now, I've gotta admit, we're only 3 issues deep into this story, and the Hulk literally just punched Cthulhu itself, and I'm absolutely here for it. Now, while the series as a whole might not be the same as the classic Immortal Hulk, where we explore the complex duality of Banner and the Hulk, it certainly combines the eerie horror elements of Immortal with the epic monster battles that the Hulk lore is known for. The big green question, of course, is whether this clash of the ages will stand the test of time as we venture further into the series. But for now, let's relish in the sheer spectacle of the Hulk taking on one of Lovecraft's most fearsome creations. It's a new Marvel edition that's got fans like me eagerly flipping those pages, wondering what other surprises await us in this thrilling new storyline.
Number 9. The Bachelor Life. While the previous run on Spider-Man felt like it was setting up a return to the relationship we've so often loved, and that for a long time was Spidey's status quo, the long-awaited but relatively short-lived marriage of Mary Jane and Peter Parker, Zeb Wells' run on the series seems to have permanently quashed that idea. My heart, you can hear it breaking. I was really excited for Wells' run, but even I was bummed when I began to feel there would be no payoff for us Peter MJ shippers from Nick Spencer's story. Unless things start to move down a different path, it seems more than likely that Mary Jane and Peter Parker will never get together ever again, and instead MJ will continue to maybe be happily married to Paul Rabin and continue to fight crime. Now with randomized luck-based powers as the hero jackpot. Not something I ever thought I'd be saying, but here we are. Peter, however, seems to be destined to always have bad luck in love. He was with Black Cat temporarily after things fell apart between him and Mary Jane, but now even that is no longer a thing, so he is once more single.
If you're enjoying this video so far, you could support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Next up on the list is number 8, Spider-Man is the new Green Goblin. Our list introduces a shocking emergence of a new Green Goblin, and no, it's not Norman Osborn, but our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man himself. See, Kraven the Hunter and the Queen Goblin join forces in a revenge-fueled alliance, leading to a wicked twist. See, Spider-Man gets infused with Norman's dark legacy and memories, becoming the new Green Goblin. As the Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 kicks off, Peter Parker, now sporting the black suit, takes center stage with an intriguing monologue, delving into why he still clings to his infamous black suit, hinting at hidden depths to his motives. But Peter's not just here to talk about fashion choices. He's realized that Kraven's meddling has transformed him, and he's done playing nice. Our edgier Spidey goes on a rant highlighting how villains like Kraven perceive him as an easy target because of his friendly demeanor. But no more Mr. Nice Spidey. He's had enough and vows that no villain will escape his justice. Spider-Man's newfound determination doesn't go unnoticed. In a shocking turn of events, he ends up burying Kraven alive, marking his the first name off of his hit list. This darker persona promises a reckoning for villains who've long eluded their just desserts.
At number 7, we have Thor deciding to give up Mjolnir. That's right, even though Mjolnir is the weapon best associated with the God of Thunder, he's currently laying down his hammer in the comics. After ascending to the throne of Asgard and becoming the new Allfather a couple of years ago, Thor has increasingly found it more and more difficult to lift and fight with Mjolnir, with the weapon even seeming to become more stubborn rather than simply heavier. Thor eventually came to the realization that the hammer is meant to be used by a warrior, not a king, and so decided to lay down Mjolnir for now as he focuses on leading Asgard into a new age. Which, coming from Thor, that's actually pretty mature for him, so good job, buddy. Coming in at number 6, we've got Tim Drake coming out as bisexual. In a world where the sidekicks of the Batman universe usually deal with a lot of trauma, heartbreak, and unfortunately crowbars, it was a nice change of pace to see the third Robin getting a chance at some genuine happiness. After rescuing his friend Bernard, who he'd shared some flirty banter with before, from a mask-wearing cult, Bernard asked Tim for a chance at a date without any supervillains, a request to which Tim smiles and says yes. Years years since his breakup with Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, it's really good to see Tim getting back in the game. Coming in at number 5, we've got Ben Reilly's return as Spider-Man. Actually a clone of Peter Parker with a super complicated backstory, Ben Reilly has had a long journey as an anti-hero commonly going under the name the Scarlet Spider. However, it seems this year that Ben has returned to possessing the Spider-Man name, as it looks like the Beyond Corporation has bought out the rights to Spidey's likeness and is now using Ben as the official corporate-sponsored Spider-Man. Add this to the fact that the real Peter Parker is currently stuck in a hospital bed due to radiation poisoning, and it looks like Ben Reilly might need to wear the classic costume for just a little while longer. Coming in at number 4, we've just learned the true identity of the One Below All in the Marvel Universe. So here's a Hulk-sized spoiler warning if you're still planning on reading The Immortal Hulk issue 50. The end of this giant green epic sees the revelation that the One Below All, the main antagonist of this entire storyline, and seemingly the deepest, darkest evil at the bottom of the entire Marvel multiverse, is actually the same being as the One Above All, aka the Marvel multiverse's highest tier of god. Just like the Hulk to Bruce Banner, the One Below All is a twisted version of the One Above All, destroying what the other creates in a cycle of birth and death. Kinda like yin and yang, but with a lot more glowing green gamma energy. At number 3, we've got the true identity of the titular Last Ronin in this spin-off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. Taking place in a dystopian future where the grandson of the Shredder has completely taken over Manhattan, The Last Ronin only revealed at the end of its first issue that the last surviving Ninja Turtle is none other than Michelangelo, the last brother you might expect to have gone super dark and serious. And while technically this twist was revealed in a cliffhanger at the very end of 2020, it wasn't until this year that the character of this traumatized Michelangelo and how he dealt with the deaths of his 3 brothers was revealed, leaving this a Ninja Turtle story with a lot fewer laughs and pizza parties than usual. Coming in at number 2, we've got Venom becoming the new god of the symbiotes. After years of build-up through events like Absolute Carnage, the creator of the symbiotes, known as Null, finally reached Earth in the King in Black event. One of the strongest villains that the Marvel multiverse has ever faced, it took every symbiote-wielding character teaming up to stop him. And when the dust finally settled, the many symbiotes of the Clintar race now look to Venom as their new leader, as the destroyer of their original god. And while the sheer weight of this responsibility is already having ramifications on Eddie Brock and Venom's personal life, this is definitely a rise in stature for a being that started out as simply a costume for Spider-Man. Coming in at our top spot today, we've got John Kent, the next generation Superman who made headlines when he came out as bisexual and kissed his boyfriend, Jay Nakamura. Initially meeting when John accidentally revealed his secret identity during a rescue attempt, Jay is a superpowered journalist that runs his own independent network and fights for truth and justice in his very own way.
Number 10, Gold Beetle. Gold Beetle is a new character that appears in Future State Suicide Squad, who appears to be a mashup between Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, which is kind of an adorable concept if you ask me. She made her first glorious appearance at the end of the secondary story in Future State Suicide Squad issue number 1, but that likely isn't all we'll be seeing of her. April's cover for Flash issue 769 seems to suggest that she'll also be joining Wally West's Flash for some more adventures. Now that should be fun. Number 9, Eternal Garden. We see the future of Kara Zor-El come to an end in issue number 2 of Kara Zor-El Superwoman. Here we see her Fortress of Solitude become a home to many as the years go on. As more and more people come there to aspire to live up to her image and her name as she ages, the Fortress of Solitude earns a new name as the Eternal Garden. Even if you aren't completely sold on this dramatic change, it's still one worth reading about just for all of even this pretty art and the colors that it brings to you. Kara lives out her days here, and eventually the Eternal Garden becomes her eternal resting place. Kind of love it. It's really, really pretty, like wow, so pretty. You definitely need to check it out. I just even want to hang these covers up. I really love the covers for that series. Number 8, the Arkham Knights. One of the most interesting groups to come out of Gotham has been the Arkham Knights. This team is one created out of the deranged criminal minds from Arkham. Some interesting elements are that their hideout is Wayne Manor, in a world where, of course, many believe that Batman is dead, so this is like a Wayne Manor that's abandoned right now. The members of the team also are focusing on not just advancing themselves with physical training, but are also engaged in therapy still as well. So it's kind of like some weird villains turned hero team building and rehabilitation exercise that is all led by Astrid Arkham, the last surviving member of the Arkham family, also known herself as Arkham Knight. Hence the team name. Arkham Knights, get it? She's the Arkham Knight. The team includes such characters as Victor Zsasz, Copperhead, Clayface, Dr. Phosphorus, Two-Face, Humpty Dumpty, Killer Croc, and Anarchy. Number 7, Captain Marvel takes charge. Captain Marvel recently took over the Avengers as the new team leader, and I am loving it. In the first issue of Avengers from 2023, Carol was introduced as the new captain of the team after having been elected in basically like a poll by card-carrying Avengers roster members. Tony gave Carol the news and she started to assemble her team, and I'm pretty here for who she picked, honestly. Although I would have loved to see her pick Spider-Woman. I still think, overall, she made some great selections for who would be joining her on the Avengers this time around. I especially really love her pick for Vision and her reasoning behind it. You should check out the first issue. That's all I'm saying. Just the first issue at least.
Next up at number 6 is Tony Stark, Kang the Conqueror. Kang is here to crash the party in his stunning new Iron Man suit, and I just couldn't wait to talk about it. His bold new look is revealed on a variant cover of Ultimate Invasion number 4, which is set to release September 27th. In this altered reality, the Maker, which is an alternate Reed Richards, wields time travel to reshape the world to his liking, erasing heroes like the Fantastic Four and leaving villains to power. Yet challenges emerge, including a time-traveling army modeled after the Avengers like Thor and Captain America. Here, Iron Man is Howard Stark, and the Maker suspects him of creating a powerful time machine, setting the stage for a clash with Kang. But who's under the Kang mask here? Possibilities are abound as Ultimate Invasion charts its own path free from established lore. The answer lies within these pages, promising an exciting twist in the Marvel saga. There was already a lot of speculation with the release of Ultimate Invasion 3 that Tony himself would be revealed as some sort of Kang the Conqueror variant, and this new look might just prove that theory. But we'll just have to wait for issue 4 to drop to find out.
Number 5, Limbo comes to Earth, but not in the manner that you would expect. In the last few years in the comics, in the pages of New Mutants, we've seen Limbo get a new ruler in the form of Madeline Pryor's Goblin Queen. Magic wasn't overthrown or anything like that. She actually chose to relinquish her metaphorical crown and step down from her place as ruler, passing on the responsibility to Maddie. This was because Maddie had basically convinced her that she was ultimately ready to turn over a new leaf. Then Dark Web happened, and some of the character development was kind of rescinded, but by the end of that event, ultimately restored, with Jean Grey sharing her memories of raising baby Christopher, aka Nathan Summers, aka Cable, with Maddie. In the end, Maddie decided to step into the light, bringing her realm of often unwanted demons with her, so that finally, those forced to hide in the darkness could be seen and accepted by the world. Kind of a beautiful little moral there. She did this by bringing the realm of Limbo to New York City with her Limbo Embassy. Now, that should make for an interesting change to the NYC skyline.
Next up at number 4, we've got Carnage versus the Venoms of the multiverse. It took 3 issues for this version of the Carnage to finally see a setback in his plan to eliminate every alternate version of Venom in the multiverse. It's a really badass series with a lot of good subplots, but let's just get to the main course. The Carnage symbiote, now unshackled from his bond to Cletus Cassidy and endowed with new demonic abilities, rampages across the multiverse, relentlessly hunting down countless versions of Venom. Enter the intriguing Venom Man-Thing, seen in the newest release in number 4, a fusion of the Venom symbiote and Theodore Salas, also known as the Man-Thing. This mysterious creature boasts the extraordinary powers of strength and interdimensional teleportation to corrosive acid touch with both physical and mystical properties. Even more captivating, the Man-Thing's dominion over plant life takes a unique twist when merged with the symbiote. As the demise of the Venomverse unfolds in issue 3, the Man-Thing, tainted by Venom's influence, becomes a symbiote ecosystem of epic proportions. proportions. Capable of growing to kaiju-like sizes and telepathically controlling pant life, its powers seem limitless. The stakes are high as Carnage confronts the Venom Man-Thing, and the fusion of the Venom symbiote and the Man-Thing's incredible abilities paints a grim picture of a world ensnared in chaos, offering a thriving narrative that fans don't want to miss.
Number 3. End of an era. I think one of the wildest changes we are seeing coming to Marvel Comics this year, and likely continuing into next in terms of the fallout, is the end of the Krakoan era. I'll never be ready to say goodbye, and it's seriously super sad to see happening in the comics, but that's where we're at. The decline of Krakoa has been building up for a while, I would say since last year, and I suppose we should be happy that we even got this much of it, considering that it was supposed to end a long time ago in terms of Jonathan Hickman's plans, but still, I didn't even want it to end. I never wanted to end. It's such a beautiful time. However, with the cataclysmic events of the 2023 Hellfire Gala, the last Hellfire Gala possibly ever, still bummed that I couldn't get a ticket to the SDCC Hellfire Gala this year, it's clear that this period of X-Men history is drawing to a close. I just don't know how we're going to return to the status quo after all this, though.
At number 2, Wilson Fisk owns the Hellfire Club. See, Wilson Fisk is no longer the Kingpin. He's passed the villainous torch to his son during Devil's Reign, reshaping the criminal landscape. However, Fisk isn't fading away. He's embraced a new persona in the invincible Iron Man number 9, shaking things up. Fisk, who sought Krakoan citizenship through marriage, now looms as a potential threat during the X-Men's turbulent times, teased in the Fall of X. Brace yourself for a dark and impactful shift in the X-Men narrative, with the Kingpin of the Hellfire Club at the antithesis of the X-Men's headaches.
Number 1. It's about to get ultimate. The Ultimate Universe has once more returned. We at Top 10 Nerd have been anticipating this return since the days of 2020. Remember all those videos we did about Ultimate? It's because we thought it was coming back then. But it's coming back now! Finally, the time is nigh. It's happening. Jonathan Hickman has returned to Marvel to bring back the Ultimate Universe by having the Maker become free from his prison in 616 with a trajectory set to return home. He not only does this, but he is then tasked with rebuilding the entire universe after it was wiped from existence during the Secret Wars era. So it's not just a return to Ultimates, but it's a return to Ultimates as imagined by Evil Reed Richards, aka the maker of Earth 1610 originally.
At number 10 is Doctor Strange. In his first ever appearance in Strange Tales number 110, you'd almost think that Doctor Strange was a totally different character. He appears as though he's some phony fortune teller at some town fair, to be completely honest. His color palette was yellow and blue, with this bizarre popped collar and streaks of silver in his hair. But over the years he began to shift more into something resembling what we know today. He soon enough dons the red cape, but it's still missing the gold lining, and the medallion on his collarbone seems to be independent of the garment of his cape. Although down the line we do come towards what we know today, it takes a while even seeing an instance where his head is entirely covered in a Deadpool-like mask. He's held back on this list only because a lot of this seems to be a natural process of his costume changing, but he still deserves a spot on the list because of how many different variations there have been. Okay, at number 9 is Captain Marvel. Some might argue that Danvers, in all of her different iterations as Miss Marvel, then Binary, Warbird, then finally Captain Marvel, has been a victim of what a lot of female comic book characters have been subject to, and that this could be the reason for all the costume changes. In earlier iterations, many female superheroes had very revealing costumes that have become a bit more dignified as time goes on, so naturally those costume changes are necessary regardless of what the character is going through. But with the case of Captain Marvel, it could also be argued that these changes were due to her complex and twisting development as a character. A few of the more prominent changes are when she goes from the red, blue, and gold color palette to the red and white look as Mrs. Marvel. Not to mention, during this era, flames are an inherent part of the outfit emitting from her head, arms, and legs. But even in the modern era, we see a few changes happening in the last decade, with the balaclava and mohawk coming into play for a brief period, then the recent change back to the grayscale color palette. It's a lot of changes and they're not always bad, but it seems like a few times the artists just weren't sure about what to settle on for her. At number 8 is Dick Grayson's Robin, and eventually Nightwing. The Robin mantle has had a lot of changes over the years, and the fact that the character's name even changes from Robin to Nightwing speaks to how many iterations of the costume we've seen. Originally, Robin works the red, green, and yellow look with the impossibly tight green Speedo and the weird green shoes. But as the character develops and gets a bit darker, he gets some pants, thank the Lord, as well as shoulder pads and armored gauntlets. But eventually, as the character takes on the Nightwing mantle, we see a blue and gold color palette come into play. And even that costume gets a few makeovers, going from the blue to a black and red look, back to a darker, more serious navy blue without the gold. He even appears briefly in a purple hood in a recent issue, but is now back to a black and blue look, similar to his classic outfit.
Number 7. Harley Quinn. Harley has always been a pretty big fan of changing up her look, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise that she would make our list for new changes to design this year. Harley is likely going to be seeing not just external changes, but is also going to be seeing some internal ones as well that will carry on towards her new series in 2021. In Future State Harley Quinn, we are not only served up an awesome new look for Harley, but we are also going to be exploring Harley's allegiances and her alignment in depth, where she's coming more into her sense of independence and growing even more as she wrestles with just what kind of anti-hero or even full-on hero she wants to be. Aside from Future State, Harley also got a new look for the Suicide Squad, which seems to echo the look Margot Robbie will be sporting as Harley in the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. Number 6. Spider-Woman. There has been some controversy over Spider-Woman's new outfit, so I'd like to come in and clear the air a little bit. Also, I've said it before and I will say it again, if you are not reading this new Spider-Woman series, what are you doing with your life? You need to check your priorities because it is actually so good. It should be at the tippy top of everyone's reading list right now. And if it's not, I'm looking at you, I'm chastising you. Put it up there. Put it at least on your list. Spider-Woman sports a new suit in her newest series starting in issue number 1, but the suit is also amazingly integrated into the story. It's not only justified by Jessica Drew as to kind of why she needs it, but it also features into the ongoing storyline as well in a way that is very intriguing. No spoilers. For Jess though, I will share that she decides she needs a new look when everyone's favorite stay-at-home dad, Roger, suggests a return to security work, or as Jess refers to it as, more like mercenary work. After Jess laments a pileup of bills, Jessica then decides she needs a separate suit to signify that the work that she is doing is paid hero work to any onlookers and not as altruistic as her standard fare. Also, I love when she's like, I don't know, because like it's not very hero-y of me to accept payment, and Roger is like, you'll always be our hero. And I'm just like, oh, it's so cute. Her needing a new costume for this makes sense to me. And I personally think the new suit looks great, especially when she's on her bike. For some reason, it's just like really good bike suit. Number 5, Katana. In Future State, the next Batman issue number 1, we get a glimpse into some other going-ons in Gotham with some extra stories. One such group that we are introduced to is the Outsiders. Honestly, a group that I immediately wanted even more of after I finished their story. The Outsiders are a group of vigilantes who aim to help free the people from under the rule and thumb of the Magistrate, the future villain that everyone in Gotham seems to have to deal with in one way or another. Members of the team include Signal and a seemingly reluctant Katana, but one who has also received not only an updated badass look, but also an upgrade when it comes to her abilities. Honestly, I love this new look, and I love her new jetpack too, even if we only got it for that one issue. Number 4, Professor X. Or maybe just X, as I think he's going by now. Is it X? Though it's hard to keep track of these new names, honestly, especially considering Apocalypse has one, but no one seems to use it, calling him every other name that he's gone at length to say, don't call me that, at any given opportunity. Professor X is now younger and more agile than we've ever seen him before. Well, maybe not his most agile. He's not able to like dodge bullets or anything. During Dawn of X, we also see that Charles also now has a completely new look and design, with him wearing a form-fitting all-black suit and keeping Cerebro on at all times. Makes him also look very mysterious. Number 3, Wonder Woman. With the Wonder Woman films being some of the more successful DC films out there in terms of box office numbers and just overall viewership, as obviously not a lot of us are going to the theaters right now, it seems DC is putting Wonder Woman at the forefront of their latest refresh. We've seen Wonder Woman go through quite a few changes over the last year, from wielding a chainsaw with her lasso of truth operating as its ripcord to her being elevated to god level. By the end of the latest latest death metal event when she took on the Batman Who Laughs herself. As Future State continues to develop, we'll not only see her character evolve into a new role in the DC universe, but we've also seen the massively successful introduction to new popular Brazilian Wonder Woman, Yara Flor. Everything seems to be coming up Wonder Woman right now in the best way possible. Number 2, Donald Blake. Donald Blake doesn't just have a whole new look, he also has a whole new agenda as he returns not as Thor's ally, but as his enemy. He's hell-bent on a mission to take down not just Thor, but all of Asgard and the Asgardian gods besides. He sports a new, darker and crazed look while also brandishing his signature wood stick, but also armed with a scalpel, which is terrifying. He looks like a wizard gone mad, which is fair considering, well, all of that Donald has been through up to this point. Everyone beware, because evil Donald Blake has arrived. He is looking for some payback. Number 1, Poison Ivy. Ivy has had quite a wild ride the last few years when it comes to changes in looks and even her alignment. In 2019, we got a brand new look from her after she was brought back to life by Wally West, resurrected from the flower she'd given Harley in Heroes in Crisis. After that, Ivy went through a lot more changes until we got a completely new outfit and redesign for her in 2020, where she dubbed herself Queen Ivy and threatened all of Gotham with vines, or perhaps more accurately roots, below its surface in Joker Warzone. We are still waiting to see how this plays out, but while I love that Ivy has taken the title of Queen, I'm hoping this plot ends up being more fearsome than the plant that is actually known as Queen Ivy, which looks like a houseplant that you might find your granny tending. Not to say grannies can't be fearsome. I mean, hey, look at Granny Goodness. But I love that she's supposed to be like Devil's Ivy and then they were like Queen Ivy. Number 10, Spider-Man. We still have a few issues to wait for this, but it was announced at the end of 2020 that Peter Parker will also be getting a brand new look in 2021, designed by artist Dustin Weaver in tandem with the creative team on Amazing Spider-Man. As we won't be seeing this costume till issue 61, with it being featured on the covers of issue 62 and 63 of the current series, we don't know too much about it other than, well, what it looks like. The new look could be described as kind of futuristic and even a little bit reminiscent of Peter's dark white Future Foundation suit he had a while back. It'll be interesting to see if this costume is just as good at staying clean, or perhaps shifting into other looks or colors as that costume was. I hope it at least is good at staying clean. I feel like anytime you wear a bright white accented superhero suit in New York City, it's gonna be tricky unless you have Mr. Fantastic's unstable molecules. Black Mask. Black Mask hasn't changed as much as some of the others on this list, but he did receive a refresh to his look in Future State, and he got a bold new wardrobe in the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey film earlier last year. Gone are the days of pinstripe suits for Black Mask as 2021 comes around, and I gotta say, thank goodness. In Future State, we get a black, white, red, and gold palette for this new design, with a much more detailed and lavish mask featuring red glowing eyes and gold teeth. To me, this screams the horror that is Black Mask even more loudly than any of his previous looks. Whereas in BOP, Ewan McGregor delivered as Black Mask not just with a mesmerizing performance, but also with various loud and polished suits and looks, including a button-up shirt with a custom print design pattern featuring his own face. Seriously, the costuming for that movie was so good. Loved it so much. Alright friends, before we move on to this next point, if you want to help us out here at the channel, you can do so by giving this video a thumbs up. Seriously, it really does help, and thank you for anyone that's already done it. Number 8, Hulkling. Hulkling kept his color scheme, but also had some major changes to his role in the Marvelverse and his look in the past year. With Empire, we saw him take his rightful place as Emperor of the Alliance, uniting both the Kree and Skrull empires together. He also was forced to march on his own home, planet Earth, and had to consider the possibility that he might actually have to destroy it as he faced the alien plant race known as the Katati, who were there and were using Earth to bolster their strength and their power. He also got a sweet cape and more regal looking variant of his suit, and the awesome and epic star sword known as Excelsior. Oh, and while we weren't looking, he and Wiccan also got married. Thank goodness we got to go to the wedding after them. I was like, where's my invite? Why didn't I get invited to this wedding?
Number 7, New Teen Titans.
Titans. A lot seems to be happening in the new Future State Teen Titans comic, one of the most preeminent being that we have a new team of Titans emerging here, featured even on the cover. But who are they, and how did they come to be Teen Titans, and what old members of the team still remain? Well, we still have Nightwing and Starfire in the team, as well as Beast and Cyborg, though in a new form, but we also have Miko Queen, Oliver's half-sister is Red Arrow, or potentially just Arrow now in this bleak future. They also seem to be working alongside Shazam here as well, who has his own team, and of course they have the surviving students of their school. This story of Teen Titans takes place after the school's collapse and the unfortunate demise of many of their pupils, as well as much of the world. The team opened up the school to train new young superheroes, which I love as a concept, and I'm actually really excited for the spin-off series that's going to come out of this, which is the Teen Titans Academy, where hopefully we'll get lots more look-backs to the nice, happy days at the Academy. That'll be cute. Number 6, Deathwing. There is actually so much going on in Teen Titans when it comes to the team and world changes. One being that near the end of issue number 1 of that series, Dick Grayson becomes Deathwing, donning a Deathstroke mask and his Nightwing suit. In issue number 2, we are also offered another alternative for this mashup name that is pretty hilarious, but that I definitely cannot repeat here on YouTube. So if you're not reading Future State Teen Titans, by the way, it's definitely, I think, worth a read. I really enjoyed it personally. Some people think it's too much, I think it's just enough. We also learn in issue number 2 that Nightwing has been working on and off with Slade Wilson, so in that regard, his look also makes a lot of sense here. Although Grayson insists that he hasn't worked with Wilson in months now. Still, I don't think his team is fully convinced on that point. I feel like Starfire is also just rolling her eyes, she's like, oh my gosh. Nightwing, why? Number 5, new Justice League. Now that it's been a little bit, I feel like I can chat about what went on with our Justice League team at the end of their story in issue 1. Not only do we have a new roster, which I'll get to in a minute, but at the end of that issue number 1 of Future State Justice League, we saw them become trapped and replaced. Of course, they weren't just going to give up, as we see in issue number 2. I mean, they are still the Justice League after all. But just who is in this league? Well, I touched on some of the things that make this team different in terms of their rules and their charter on part 1 of this list. It's now time to focus on not how they are, but who they are, which I also love that issue number 2 dives into a little more in terms of characterization. Wonder Woman is, of course, Yara Flor, not an Amazon in the traditional sense, but from the Amazon. Superman is John Kent. Batman is still Jace, aka Tim Fox. Aquawoman is Princess Andy Curry, daughter of Mera and Aquaman. Jess Chambers of Earth 11 is Flash, and Green Lantern is Joe Moline from Far Sector, and by far my favorite member of this league. Although I do also think it's really cool that Jess Chambers is Flash. It's weird, it took me a while to actually piece that one together. I don't know if I'm just some sort of noob, but just realized that recently. Number 4, Detective Chimp. Huge changes afoot for Detective Chimp's character, featured in the additional Justice League Dark story we saw in issue number 1 of Future State Justice League. I was more focused on Justice League in part 1 of this list, so now it's time to get a little dark ourselves on part 2. One of the major changes we see here is that Detective Chimp in the future has become the host for Demon Etrigan himself. Neither party seems to be too happy about that situation, and we don't really find out in this specific story how all this came about or what exactly happened to Jason Blood, but it's definitely a crazy and interesting development. And actually, if you read issue number 2 of that series, you will find out more about that. So if you're wondering where'd Jason Blood go, what's going on, check out issue 2 of Future State Justice League for those answers. Number 3, Cybeast. As I said, we get a combination of Cyborg and Beast in this one, and I really meant that. Very literally. In Teen Titans, it's revealed that the two have merged together and now exist in one shared body. It's pretty freaky, but also in a way, it's really cute and awesome. I love Cyborg and Beast dynamic together as friends and teammates, and I think if anyone had to share a body, they're the chosen few on the team who could actually make that work. And they do make it work pretty well. Number 2, Red X. This might not be a big character change in terms of the actual character themselves, because we don't really know a lot yet, but just the appearance of this character in the comics is a big deal. Red X appeared in the Teen Titans animated series, and the true identity of the character was always a mystery. Like in the story here, we learn that Red X's mask and costume used to be one that belonged to Nightwing, but what we don't know is who is donning it now. Some theorize it could actually be a younger member of the family, perhaps a different Robin, such as Damian Wayne, or that it could be a new character, Bao Pham, aka Clown Hunter, who first appeared during Joker War. Right now, it's unclear, but either way, the appearance of Red X in Future State is huge, regardless of who is under the mask. And yeah, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in Teen Titans 2 as well, I still don't know who it is. I feel like it's still a mystery. So I guess we're gonna have to wait till Teen Titans Academy. We're going to the Academy to find out. Number 1, Four Horsemen. While Future State initially seemed like it was just a bunch of individual stories, we are now seeing as it progresses that there is more of an overarching and intertwining timeline at play here, with a grander story. Now, not everyone is going to be into that manner of storytelling, but I personally love a good jumbled and mysterious timeline. I love to try to solve it. It's like solving a mystery or like building a puzzle, and I love figuring that all out and just getting a bunch of little pieces. If you feel the same way about this, then one key piece to this puzzle that you'll want to know about is the Four Horsemen. These four end up being defeated by Raven in Teen Titans issue number 2, but have actually made appearances across our timeline. We've seen or felt their presence in Future State comics like Shazam and Flash and Green Lantern, though exactly how they all kind of fit in still remains a bit of a mystery. Of the four, all look familiar, with Wally West, the Flash, who actually has his own tombstone pictured in the Teen Titans series. And if you're thinking, no Amanda, isn't that Wallace West? No, actually there is a Wally West tombstone and a Wallace tombstone, so yeah. And also Roundhouse is another one of the Four Horsemen that stuck out to me personally. But these four are definitely all connected to the far reaches of Future State, so keep an eye out if you're trying to build that puzzle by like looking at everything. It's a lot to look at, and we're not going to get all the pieces, I don't think, here. We're going to have to go to the other series to find it all out. Number 10, Peter and MJ never get together. Another thing that never happens for Peter in this reality, other than not becoming Spider-Man, he never ends up dating the girl next door, Mary Jane Watson. In this reality, both graduate high school and go their separate ways, although they are presented as being neighbors and somewhat of distant friends. It's also implied here that Peter and MJ never got to be as close as they were on Earth 616. There also is no mention of Gwen Stacy or Harry Osborn in this reality, so we can assume that Peter was more of a loner here. MJ still plans to work as an actress, and Peter goes on to college, presumably to study something in the scientific field at Empire State University. Number 9, Quicksilver is dead. In this reality, Quicksilver no longer lives. It's mentioned in Heroes Reborn issue number 3 that he was killed during a fight between Squadron Supreme and the X-Men, implying that in this reality, Quicksilver and likely his sister Wanda are both still considered mutants. He is believed to have been killed by Blur, the Squadron Supreme speedster, kinda like a version of the Flash, who was definitely faster than Quicksilver. In fact, Blur is believed to be the fastest man alive in this reality. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are loving Heroes Reborn as much as we are. Number 8, the Silver Witch, self-proclaimed speedster supreme. Either Wanda and Pietro were mutants in this reality, or simply still believed they were. Here, Wanda never left to join the Avengers and so never reformed, remaining a villain. After the death of her brother, Wanda absorbed his powers, becoming not only a powerful hex magic user, but also the fastest hex magic user likely to ever exist. She apparently refers to herself as the Speedster Supreme and set out to get revenge on Blur for the death of her beloved brother. It also appears that Wanda senses that something is wrong with this world and Blur. She currently believes, however, that it is the death of her brother that makes her feel this way, but it probably has something to do with her sensing something is wrong with this reality, and with Blur's presence in it. Number 7, Wally West, the villain. As much as this should be a big change, it seems to be becoming less and less of a surprising one when it comes to Wally's character. It seems DC is obsessed with making Wally West their big bad speed villain. In Future State, we see Wally consumed by a mysterious entity known as Famine. This entity turns Wally against his friends, family, and fellow speedsters, even as they try to help him. Feeding on their speed energy, Wally breaks the connection many of them have to the Speed Force. And even in some cases takes away more than just that. I don't know why DC is obsessed with making fan favorite Wally West become a villain, but as interesting of a change as this is to his character, it's slowly becoming the modern status quo, which kinda ruins it. Also, people don't want to see Wally as a villain. Or most people don't. I don't know. Do you want to see Wally as a villain? Let me know in the comments. Number 6, Jessica Cruz. Jessica has lost her powers! You heard me right. We learned in one of the extra stories included in Future State Green Lantern issue number 1, titled The Taking of Sector 0123, that Jessica Cruz is all alone and powerless in outer space. She still has her ring with her, but is unable to use it. And the rest of that issue actually goes into that a little bit more. And it is alone that she faces a team of Yellow Lanterns who infiltrate the base that she has been guarding, and it is alone that she faces a team of Yellow Lanterns who infiltrate the base that she has been guarding and consistently maintaining all on her own for the past year. And yeah, it's a tech base, not a construct, so yeah. Fortunately for Jessica, she still has her training which she can rely on. She also won't remain without superpowers forever, likely, and you can check out the issue to learn more about what I'm hinting at there. Cruz fans especially should enjoy this story. I personally was like, this is pretty cool. I think it's my favorite one in that book, in the Green Lantern book, issue 1. I don't know. I think so. Number 5, no fraternizing. The new Justice League aren't just here with a new roster, but they also come with new rules as well. The biggest one seems to be that they aren't supposed to get to know each other, hang out, or really fraternize in any way. Heck, they don't even have a headquarters and aren't allowed to actually have any meetings. Say what? We find all this out in issue 1 of Future State Justice League, when John Kent, who is the future Superman, asks his fellow teammates if they would be interested in having a meeting. He acknowledges, however, that it breaks protocol. In fact, this team all seem to be more about doing their own thing than banding together, and often seem to get on one another's nerves. Still, despite it being against the rules, Yara and John seem to have found a bit of common ground, and have formed a friendship outside of the League. Shh, don't tell the League police. Wait, are there League police in the future? And Aquawoman and the Flash have also seemed to form some sort of a relationship. Number 4, defeat. The League we are introduced to in issue 1 ends up torn asunder pretty quickly in that first issue. Now, I don't want to spoil just how that all goes down because it's honestly, I think it's a pretty neat read in my opinion, but just a reminder to not get too attached to our new team. It seems that their new charter rule of not fraternizing does not necessarily equate to giving them more strength. Here's hoping that this defeat actually might help them to maybe amend that policy in the future and like get rid of that part of the charter. Of course, only time will tell what the Justice League's true fate ends up being. We'll have to wait for issue 2 to find out. I really like this team, so kind of hoping we see some kind of redemption for them at some point. I'm kind of hoping we get to see them like in, present day at some point, because I like them. I think they're cool. Number 3, the Magistrate. Gotham has a new major villain, potentially one of its greatest yet. It faces a force known as the Magistrate, who appear to have been contracted by Gotham's current future mayor, Christopher Nakano, to keep Gotham orderly. In fact, when I heard the Magistrate, I actually thought it was one person, but I don't think it's one person now. And by keep Gotham orderly, I mean impose curfews, shoot masks on sight, and arrest people who are peacefully protesting. I mean, hey, I guess they were out after curfew. The Magistrate's presence can be felt across all Bat-centric and Gotham-centered stories and books, but seems to really loom aloft in Harley Quinn and has a commanding presence in Catwoman, where Selina herself goes up against their forces on a train transporting a ton of the Magistrate's prisoners. Number 2, new Batman. With a new future comes a new Batman, something we haven't seen happen for quite some time in the comics actually. I think the last time we saw someone take up the Bat mantle actually would have been way back when Dick became Batman for a bit. But now, who should be taking over after Batman's mysterious but not actually real death? Jace. Who is Jace? Jace is also known as Tim Fox, Luke's brother. While we don't know very much about Tim as he hasn't been seen for quite some time in the comics, we do know he seems to have some very passionate motivation for taking up the mantle. In this futuristic Gotham too, where tech can easily be tracked and traced, Jace as the next Batman is forced to go without it for the most part, relying on more old school gadgets like his batarangs and his flashbangs. Flashbang. Number 1, new Wonder Woman. Of course, one of the biggest and brightest changes seems to be the addition of Yara Flor, who is seen as the new Wonder Woman in Future State. Yara first appeared in Dark Knight's Death Metal issue number 7, but also has her own Future State comic subtitled Wonder Woman for people to check out. I think I can safely say she's been the most popular of the new characters introduced thus far. Yara herself is not actually from Themyscira, but from the Amazon, so really still an Amazonian when you think about it. Okay, that was a bad joke. Being from the Amazon rainforests of South America, she does not typically work alone, sometimes accompanied thus far by her winged horse Jerry and forest guardian spirit known as Kaipora. I think I said that right, Kaipora. I love Kaipora's look, by the way. I feel like I really want to do a Kaipora cosplay. Let me know what y'all think. Number 10, all masks are bad. Whereas we've known the government to not necessarily condone vigilantes, they usually aren't actively hunted down by the police or federal agents. However, in Future State Gotham, we see a new status quo, one where vigilantes are seen as just as bad as the villains that they fight against. In some stories, villains are referred to as black hats and heroes are referred to as white hats, but at the end of the day, they are all the same in terms of them being masks. And that isn't good in this future at all. Masks are basically seen by Gotham's ruling forces as criminals, and Gotham is even working to make sure no one can question their authority when it comes to shooting and killing masks on sight. In fact, they've already made that a policy, though there are still some legal precedents that Gotham's police and peacekeepers need to overcome and figure out when it comes to avoiding prosecution themselves. Number 9, Harley Quinn team up. Kind of a weird one too. In Harley Quinn issue number 1, we find out that Harley has been captured by the Magistrate and is being used as a pawn and tool for Dr. Jonathan Crane, formerly known as Scarecrow. In this current climate, Scarecrow of course is no more, as masks are illegal. Harley, after being captured for being a mask, gets some time to reflect on her own alignment a bit, and I'm sure that that will end up actually being her overarching journey in this story, to figure out sort of who she is and where she belongs. To start, however, she seems to be pretty balanced, or I guess kind of unbalanced, when it comes to doing both. She is tasked by Crane to use her brilliant former doctor and psychologist mind to help him find and defeat other villainous masks who have been eluding the Magistrate so that they might be imprisoned. An interesting and, for Crane, infuriating team up that will hopefully end up leading to Harley's release, escape, or hey, maybe even we'll just leave her simply as Crane's oddball but genius partner. I'm kind of down for any/all of the above. Number 8, spoiler, the traitor. Stephanie Brown seems to have found a new title amongst her Bat family in Future State, and that title is Traitor. Initially, Spoiler was believed to have turned her back on the Bat family, befriending various villains and leaving her heroic ways behind, then becoming captured by the Magistrate's forces and locked up. She really started focusing on survival as opposed to doing what is right, which caused her to be looked down upon by the fellow members of her Bat family. We see her and Cassandra Cain actually come to blows, fighting one another initially when they are made cellmates. It seems like there is potentially going to be a lot of tension between this very divided Bat family. Something that we don't usually see much of. Okay, well, depending on which members we're talking about. The question is if Spoiler, or Patch as we know her in Future State, has really changed sides for good. Or I guess I mean for bad. But is it permanent? I'm gonna have to read to find out. Number 7, Tony Stark never built Iron Man. Imagine a reality, if you will, where Tony Stark never became Iron Man. In Heroes Reborn, Stark never got hit with shrapnel in the chest, wasn't kidnapped, and did not end up being forced to make the Iron Man armor. Not having this life-changing experience meant that he continued along a path that he was on before any of this happened, continuing to be a greedy but brilliant arms dealer and billionaire playboy. In the greater scheme of things, appearing more as one of Earth's everyday corporate villains as opposed to any kind of national or global superhero. Number 6, the amazing Shutterbug. Peter Parker doesn't get his powers as you'd imagine in this reality. Instead, the spider that was intended to bite him that day ends up squashed, meaning no Amazing Spider-Man. Instead, we get a powerless Peter who ends up becoming the amazing Shutterbug. He graduates high school, goes to college, and ends up still working for the Daily Bugle as a photographer. In this reality, he also still goes out and takes pictures of superheroes. He just isn't one of them. Peter captures Hyperion dealing with the Annihilation Hive on his camera, but one manages to escape the hero. It's up to Peter to protect the office and his colleagues from it. Using his smarts, he manages to do so, but ultimately ends up being bit by this one surviving Annihilation bug, causing him to transform into something more monstrous than his 616 counterpart, a member of the Annihilation Hive. However, it is implied that comes to a quick end, because he throws himself out a window, so yeah, he probably doesn't make it. Number 5, the mystery of Wakanda. While on Earth 616 and in the MCU, the secret of Wakanda's powerful existence and technology have been revealed to the world, in the Heroes Reborn reality, this information still remains on a need-to-know basis, and it turns out the world, according to Wakanda, does not need to know. What this means is that no one really knows about Wakanda, and its greatness and capabilities still remain at large a myth. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this Heroes Reborn list and you want to learn even more about it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I'm going to be following along with it, so I'm happy to tell you more about it. Number 4, the Ronin King? Just as the public's knowledge of Wakanda seems to be altered, so too does it seem will be Black Panther's role. Instead, we can likely expect to see T'Challa take up a new mantle. Based on a variant cover for the current Black Panther series, issue number 25, it seems that T'Challa will instead be taking up the mantle of Ronin. On the cover, we see him dressed as the character with the Heroes Reborn event name below, and given the new identity in italicized letters of the Ronin King, period. I cannot wait to meet this new king. It's like a twist for the character that I never thought about. I love it. Number 3, no more Avengers. In the place of the Avengers who never formed in the Heroes Reborn reality, we have the Squadron Supreme of America, here to protect the world from national, global, and intergalactic threats. Their members seem to take some inspiration from another very prominent superhero team in comics, DC's Justice League. Blur is Stanley Stewart, an alternate reality version of Marvel hero Wizard, known for his superhuman speed and speed-based powers. Power Princess is Zarda Shelton, an alternate version of Zarda. She is a utopian who gets her powers from training and her unique heritage. Dr. Spectrum is Joseph Ledger, an alternate version once again of that same character. His powers are granted to him by the Power Prism, originally a cosmic artifact or tool given to him by a Skrull after Joe had saved that Skrull's life. Nighthawk is Kyle Richmond, also an alternate version of Marvel's hero of the same name. Nighthawk has no powers, but is a master fighter, marksman, detective, and corporate businessman. And finally, we have Hyperion, who is Marcus Milton, an alternate version of Mark Milton. Hyperion gets his powers from being an Eternal, meaning that he can fly, has superhuman strength, speed, and endurance, is virtually immortal, and can manipulate and wield cosmic energy, which he usually chooses to shoot through eye lasers, basically. I'm not gonna call it heat vision, but you know what's happening here. Yeah, it's like Marvel's Justice League. The original Squadron Supreme of Earth 712 made their first appearance in Avengers issue 85 in 1971. And I believe they also have like a mini-series, so if you're looking for stuff to read, that might be a good thing to go back and check out if you want more Squadron Supreme, or if you want to get to know them better before you come into Heroes Reborn with me. Come on into Heroes Reborn. The water's fine. Number 2, President Coulson. That's right, in Heroes Reborn, Coulson ends up as the president. It's also implied that he is one of the few people who remember what the world used to be like before everything was altered. I have my suspicions for who might be behind some of this. Here, Agent Coulson is President Coulson. Phil himself is up for re-election and perhaps might be up to something sinister from the way he seems to be enjoying and unafraid of an attack on the White House, which is defended against by Hyperion. I never stopped to think of how Phil Coulson being president might be a bad thing. Granted, I also never considered a reality where Coulson would be president. Totally caught me off guard. It turns out this is only because Phil Coulson isn't really the one calling the shots. He's actually controlled in turn by the still villainous and immensely powerful Mephisto. Number 1, all villains are dead. Sort of. A lot of them are, anyways, but we've kind of been promised some surviving and new ones will rise up and take their place. When it came to Earth's and the galaxy's greatest threats, the Squadron Supreme decided to capture those villains and put them in prison. Not just any Earthbound prison either. Instead, they decided to use the Negative Zone as a prison, against Reed Richards' recommendations, I might add. In issue 2 of Heroes Reborn, these villains managed to escape during the attempt to add Dr. Doom to their prison. Having escaped, it is up to Hyperion to round them up, which he does, but this time they are not really going back. Their punishment punishment for escaping is a bloody death at the hands of Hyperion. All in seemingly one day, he takes out Galactus, the Brood, Mr. Beyonder, the Hive of Annihilation, Ultron, Winter Soldier, the Widow Guard, Namor, and the Hulk. Just another day's work for Hyperion. Number 10. Heroes Reborn is not Heroes Reborn. Although this isn't a huge character-based change or anything like that, I think it's important to note the major difference between this event and that of the Heroes Reborn event that came many years prior. The original Heroes Reborn event happened in the 90s from 1996 to 1997 and was a crossover event orchestrated by Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. The initial Heroes Reborn crossover gave us a glimpse into a world where the heroes who had died in the events of Onslaught were reborn, with many aspects of the characters and world differing from the one that we had known prior. The 2021 event, Heroes Reborn, has no connection to this event, save that it's also a glimpse into a fundamentally different alternate world. Or at least many of the fundamental aspects are different. Still a superhero world, so that part's not different. Number 9. Siege Society. This miniseries tie-in has not started yet, but it's going to give us a pretty different spin on some of Earth 616's greatest heroes, so I figured it might be an important one to tell you about in anticipation of its release. Siege Society is a team of villains in the Heroes Reborn continuity made up of a combination of some of our most powerful and capable heroes from Earth 616, as well as some of the main continuity's most notorious villains. By the looks of issue 1, we'll see Baron Zemo leading the team, and it appears based on the cover that we'll likely see Jean Grey, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Sabretooth, and Scott Lang's Ant-Man joining him. The first issue releases on May 26th, so we'll have to wait till then to find out more. Number 8. Thor is not mighty. Nor is he a god anymore, really. In this reality, Thor doesn't even believe in gods. He is an alcoholic who believes he is a human and does not really know the truth of his heritage. At least that's what we're initially led to believe. As on Earth 616, Thor was sent to Earth by Odin to learn humility. Once he had become worthy, he would be able to return to Asgard and in the main continuity would also become a hero of Earth and a mighty avenger. However, in Heroes Reborn, Thor never does learn humility and is unable to return to Asgard in time to save them all. Instead, Mangog comes and destroys Asgard, killing all the Asgardians, including Thor's father, the Allfather, Odin. Number 7. Stillness and mysticism. In this reality, Stanley Stewart's The Blur is presented in a very different way from most speedsters. One, he seems to live with ADHD as a result of his speed powers, which I think makes a lot of sense, given not just the world we live in, but given the idea of having speed powers in a modern world. I already feel like I struggle to maintain focus on one thing, and I'm moving at human speed levels, so yeah. But the other part of his character that is unique to his Earth 712 counterpart and the world of speedsters in general is that he ends up seeking help after he gets his powers from the Ancient One. During that visit to the Camartage, it's explained that these powers are a gift given to Stanley by the Vishanti. In order to find peace and master them, Stanley must master stillness. In stillness, with his newfound powers, he is able to see into other dimensions. In stillness, he's able to see everything around him, something most people miss out on by going fast. It's not only a beautiful sentiment, but a new and refreshing take on the idea of speedsters and on Stanley Stewart's powers. We all sometimes just need to breathe and just be present, you know? I love that. Comics and stories highlighting the importance of that in life. Number 6. Aunt May dies. Here it isn't Uncle Ben who dies, but instead is Aunt May, which, wow, if you thought Uncle Ben's death was a heartbreaker, wait until you experience May's death. Ugh! Especially considering that May is a character that we know a lot better, due to the fact that in more realities it is always Ben who dies earlier on, so we've had more time to get to know May. Aunt May's death here happens while Peter is in college. He is planning on heading home to join his aunt and uncle for dinner before they head out to a show together downtown. However, while she is out shopping, Hyperion ends up in a fight with a villain, recklessly tossing, I think it's a billboard at the villain, which smashes into the very building she has been looking for a new dress in. Her death hits Peter hard. He is forced to drop out of college to help support his uncle and get a job at the Daily Bugle, using his new drone tech to capture footage of supers, who he has obviously also come to resent. Not an ideal scenario. Number 5. Peter Parker leaves the Daily Bugle, or he's in the process of kinda leaving when his one-shot comes to a close. We don't really know the fate of Peter just yet, but it doesn't look good based on the end of the Peter Parker The Amazing Shutterbug story. Peter is not happy working at the Daily Bugle and is feeling pretty defeated, but Uncle Ben gives him the advice that if he isn't happy, he should seek out whatever makes him happy, work to make that change. Ben reminds Peter that he and May raised him to not let the world beat him down, to keep dreaming big and going for his dream. Which I gotta say, I love this little like pep talk from Uncle Ben, because I just feel like Peter is the type of character that is always like so down on himself and so like defeatist, and this kind of calls that out in a great way and allows Peter to kind of undergo a change there, which is, I don't know, kind of unique. Peter is kind of stuck in a cycle usually in 616. So Peter, taking Ben's advice, confronts Robbie at the Bugle about not being happy taking pictures of superheroes, basically threatening to quit. Robbie tells Peter to just give it one more day and then he'll try to look for something else that Peter can use his drones for in the meantime, something more meaningful. Peter agrees, but he never gets to finish his day and never gets to potentially move to cover something else at the Bugle or leave it completely due to him being bit by one of the surviving Annihilation hive bugs. Transformation Station. Number 4. Captain America remained lost. In this reality, Captain America's history was similar to that of his Earth 616 counterpart, with him being a preeminent hero around the time of World War II. However, after he went MIA, his body would not be recovered as the Avengers were never found. Instead, he remained frozen in the ice for what would seem to be forever after. However, Blade, who remembers the reality of Earth 616 and how things once were, managed to find Rogers himself and free him from the ice. It seems to be implied that Rogers may also sense that there is something wrong with the world, though it's unclear if this is just because he woke up from a decades-long nap. Hyperion himself is shown to dislike Captain America. In his civilian persona as Marcus Milton, history teacher, he marked a paper harshly that was about the World War II hero, encouraging the student who wrote it to basically get better at discerning fact from fiction. So yeah, that's what he thinks of Captain America. He's like, he's not even a real superhero. I don't know why that's my Marcus Milton voice, but there you go. Number 3. The Fantastic Four never existed. Here, Reed Richards and his friends Susan Storm, Ben Grimm, and Johnny Storm never went on that fateful trip to space and so never received their powers from cosmic rays. While we see Ben and Reed together in the second Heroes Reborn issue, there seems to be no sign of Johnny or Susan there. So it's unclear if the four are even friends or work together now. Both Ben and Reed ended up as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this reality, with Ben still being more focused on tactical ops or perhaps groundwork as a soldier or a pilot, and Reed being more focused still in the realms of science, using that big old brain. Number 2. Who is Nova? In the Heroes Reborn one-shot Hyperion and the Imperial Guard, we get a bonus story featuring the Starjammers. Yep, they're making another Starjammer series, friends. So if you're a fan, yay. And if you're not a fan, they're doing it anyways, so just deal with it. It is here that it's revealed that Johnny, having never got his flame powers from exposure to the cosmic rays, did not remain on Earth, but turned to the stars, joining the Nova Corps and even earning the rank of Elite Supernova. Pretty impressive. Johnny would ally himself with Lilandra in the fight over who should rule the Shi'ar Empire. Together they attempt to recruit the Starjammers to their cause, and it is because of his allegiance that he was being hunted by Hyperion and the Imperial Guard, who work for Emperor D'Ken, Lilandra's brother. Number 1. Phoenix is in Ravencroft. What? Near the end of issue 3 of Heroes Reborn, we also learned that the new Phoenix, Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is located in the Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane. How did she get here? Why does she allow herself to be here? I just have so many questions. But of course, I'll need to wait for them to be answered. Kind of. Right now, in regards to our new Phoenix, all we know is that she also senses something is wrong with this reality and that she's willing to join Blade and Captain America's team of reality-busting heroes to help fix it. Yay! She also seems to be a little bit concerned that maybe her new Phoenix powers were involved in this and that she accidentally did it without knowing. Oops. However, instead of worrying about her own actions, which she may have unintentionally done, Maya also might want to watch out, because we also know from Hyperion and the Imperial Squad Starjammer story that Lilandra is also planning on using the Phoenix Force to take the Shi'ar Empire away from her brother. Yeah, Lilandra's after that Phoenix Force and she's like, I have a plan to capture it. I don't know how she plans to do that, but I'm interested in seeing what her plan is.